Hi, everyone. This is Tabarak from the team at Growth FullStack, and today we'd like to discuss a very popular use case with you on comparing retention data, absolute versus relative. And we have Amlan, who's the senior data scientist from the team, who will help us answer some questions. So if you haven't already had a chance, here's how you can get to the use case. You can log on to our website, growthfullstack.com, hover over to use cases, type in retention, and it will pop up. So Amlan, thank you for being here today. And let's just dive right into your first question. What is retention?
Yeah, so retention in simple words, Tabarak, would be a product's ability to retain customers over a period of time. So if a product has good retention, more and more users keep coming back to your product and use it, and they're really engaged. And if you do not have good retention, the users keep falling off, and you need to spend a lot in acquiring new users all the time.
Okay, and why do you think we should do a retention analysis? Like, what are the benefits of it?
Yeah, so retention analysis kind of helps you understand when your users are returning and what are their behavioral symptoms, what do they exactly do. It also helps you target the right users who would be more susceptible to, let's say, ads, revenue, and getting to do specific events in your specific app or game. And it also retention analysis also gives you a lot of quantitative data to basically form different growth hypotheses on, and then basically evaluate them and understand how you can make your app better.
And how is retention calculated?
So in the industry, there are two broad methods that retention metrics are basically calculated upon. They are absolute and relative. So if I had to give you an example, let's say you have an app and somebody logs in at around 11:55 at around midnight and logs back out and then logs back in after, let's say, 15-20 minutes, absolute retention would calculate this user as somebody who was retained on day one, if day zero is the first day on which the user logged into your app, right? Which is correct if you look at calendar days, but relatively speaking, that's not really true, right? It was just a 15-minute gap through which the user logged back in. So, and that's where relative retention comes in. You look at the relative time duration between different events happening, and it gives you a little clearer picture and a more accurate picture.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you've just mentioned the two different kinds of or types of retention, absolute versus relative. Which one do you think is better?
Yeah, so there's no hard and fast definition of what is better. It kind of depends on what people prefer. So absolute retention it's a legacy form of calculating retention metrics, and is used by many companies such as AppLovin as well. And relative retention again is something that is used by a lot of companies now. Tangent, for example, calculates retention on a relative scale. And in my opinion, I believe relative retention gives you a little more accurate picture of what your engagement of your app is actually like.
And what about Growth FullStack then? How do we calculate retention?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with Growth FullStack, we enable customers to do ETL of all different kinds of data. And because it is easily customizable, any sort of retention approach is possible. So if you want absolute retention, we could calculate metrics based on absolute retention, or if you want relative, we could do it that way either. If you can move to the dashboard that I shared with you before, we can go through it in detail. Yeah, if you can just scroll down a little bit. Yeah, so here, what you see is a templatized dashboard which users can avail if they work with Growth FullStack. And what we have here on the left-hand side top is just two apps from, let's say, an app publisher, and what is the daily trending of different installs. And on the second graph that you see is exactly what we talked about. So for this templatized dashboard, we have both kinds of retentions enabled for them, and you could look at absolute retention or relative retention, whatever suits your needs or your app, and we could make it available for you. If you just go down below, I'd just like to highlight one more approach with which we kind of differ from the legacy way of looking at these metrics. So the industry generally tries to look at a retention curve, but what we try and do is look at cohorted retention metrics such as day X, which can mean day 1 or to up to day 90 or even further for that matter. In these graphs here, you see a retention metrics calculated from day 1 to day 90, and trending of these retention rates give you a much better idea about what your engagement is like.
Okay, great. Thank you, Amlan. I think those are all the questions we had for now. And thank you everyone for listening. If you do have any additional questions to ask, please feel free to write them in the comments below or send us an email at info@growthfullstack.com. And you can find the email address on our website as well. And stay tuned for more videos on Growth FullStack.